In 2022, Sri Lanka went into an economic crisis, a crisis with unprecedented levels of issues in the country, where people were forced to stand in queues for days for their basic needs, including fuel, LP gas and other necessities as well. Now, since 2022, Sri Lanka has come a long way with an IMF-supported program and assistance provided by its other international partners. Good morning and welcome to the Breakfast Rundown with me, Zulfick Farzan, where we dive into the details of the stories that are making headlines here at home and across the world. Now, to start off, the fourth review of the International Monetary Fund supported program for Sri Lanka concludes today. Now, according to Deputy Minister of Finance, Dr. Anil Jayantha Fernando, discussions related to this review began recently between representatives of the IMF and Sri Lanka. Now, the discussions are being held in Washington, D.C. in the United States of America, with participation of Deputy Minister Dr. Harshana Surya Peruma, the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, Mahinda Siriwardena, the Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. Nandalal Singha, and other officials. Now, Dr. Anil Jayantha Fernando stated that with the conclusion of the fourth review, the IMF staff-level agreement for the disbursement of the fifth tranche will be announced. Now, at the same time, the International Monetary Fund says that it hopes to reach a staff-level agreement on the next review of Sri Lanka's program soon. The IMF also emphasized that Sri Lanka must undertake broader structural reforms to mitigate the impact of recent trade policy shocks and promote sustainable economic growth. Now, this was disclosed during a press conference held in Washington, D.C. On the sidelines of the IMF and World Bank spring meetings.
Talking about uncertainty, which the MD mentioned this morning, as you just talked about, the team was in Sri Lanka not too long ago, and they were in the midst of having discussion with the authorities when these tariffs were announced. So for the team, it became quite difficult to put together a macro framework, which takes into account the tariffs and the implications they have on growth, on exports, and so on and so forth. So that was an example of how uncertainty can affect just operations with countries. So the team is back here, and we've continued discussions with the authorities, and so we hope to have an agreement soon on the next review, a staff-level agreement. The broader question is that this is a country which is affected by huge tariffs. There's the garment sector. There are a lot of the impact on the garment sector could be quite significant, and there are other sectors also here. So the question, of course, is for countries like not just Sri Lanka but all countries, they need to think in terms of a diversification of their export markets, greater integration within the region. All these things can help diversify, can help you mitigate the risks which come with tariffs from one country.
Now, at the same time, the International Monetary Fund has downgraded its outlook for the Asia-Pacific region following a series of tariff announcements by the United States of America and subsequent countermeasures by trading partners.
The flurry of tariff announcements by the United States since the release of the January 2025 VO update and countermeasures by trading partners amount to a major trade shock for the global economy and the Asia-Pacific region. We have therefore downgraded the outlook for the region in tandem with that for the global economy. There are three reasons why Asia is particularly exposed to the recent trade policy shocks and the increased trade policy uncertainty. First, many Asian economies are very open and oriented towards trade and goods. Second, emerging Asian economies benefited from the relatively earlier reopening from the pandemic compared to other regions, and because of which recovery of exports was also pretty good. Third, Asian countries have continued to increase their participation in the global supply chain in recent years with rising exposure to US demand. The share of value-added exports to the US has increased both directly and indirectly through global supply chains, as shown in the chart here. China is a notable exception, where this share has declined or plateaued due to earlier round of tariffs. The combination of greater exposure to the US market and significantly high global policy uncertainty presents a vulnerability for the region.
Now, on the 6th of May, Sri Lankans will be heading for another election. That's the local government elections. The Department of Post reports that approximately 60% of the distribution of official polling cards has been completed. Deputy Postmaster General Premachandra Hewat said that the distribution will continue door-to-door until April 29. Additionally, the Department of Post has designated Sunday, the 27th of April, as a special day for the distribution of polling cards for the election. Now, at the same time, the Department of Government Printing announced that around 85% of the official ballot papers have been printed. A government printer, Pradeep Pushpakumara, mentioned that the printing of ballot papers for 71 local government institutions revised by the Election Commission following court orders is currently underway. The government printer aims to complete these tasks by April 30th. This year's local government election will see 17,296,330 eligible voters participating. At the same time, postal voting for local government elections continues today. The Election Commission has announced that postal votes can be marked as at designated polling centres from 8:30 in the morning until 4:15 in the evening. The postal voting process, which began yesterday, will also take place on the 28th and 29th of April. Eligible postal voters from state institutions, police, the tri-forces, schools, organizations and statutory bodies can mark their votes on these respective days. Additionally, the Election Commission has established a special polling centre at Kandy Girls High School for police officers engaged in duties at the Siri Dalada Maligawa. Now, the Ministry of Transport and Highways has given Sri Lanka Transport Board depot managers until the end of next month to provide profitable and quality services. Deputy Minister Dr. Prasanna Gunasena has said that decisions will be made regarding the individuals who fail to meet these requirements. Currently, there are 107 operational SLTB depots, with only around 60 of them being classified as profitable. Since the new government took office, approximately 20 new individuals have been appointed as SLTB depot managers. Deputy Minister Dr. Prasanna Gunasena noted that the remaining managers were appointed during previous administrations. He emphasized that the current government has given these managers time to align with the new policies for managing the Sri Lanka Transport Board depots. The Siri Dalada Vandana, or the sacred veneration of the relic of Lord Buddha. Now, this sacred veneration is taking place for the 8th consecutive day today in Kandy. Now, at the same time, at a special press briefing held yesterday, Kandy District Secretary Indira Udavatta and other officials requested the public to refrain from visiting Kandy for the Siri Dalada Vandanava until further notice. This appeal comes as approximately 400,000 devotees have already arrived in Kandy. The opportunity for the public to pay homage to the sacred tooth relic was granted on the 18th of April after a 16-year hiatus. In recent days, a large number of devotees have flocked to Kandy to pay their respects to the sacred tooth relic. However, the police have also urged the public to avoid visiting Kandy for the Siri Dalada Vandanava given the high turnout. During the media briefing held yesterday, the Dalada Vandanava Operations Committee highlighted that the influx of devotees has exceeded the capacity of available facilities. Health authorities have reminded devotees to be mindful of their health and safety. They advised avoid panic while standing in queues to prevent stampedes, seeking immediate medical assistance in case of emergencies, and staying hydrated. The Siri Dalada Vandanava will continue until the 27th daily, with devotees allowed to pay homage from 11 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Now let's cross borders just over Sri Lanka's ocean, the Sea of Sri Lanka. Two world powers are on the brink of another tense situation. Who am I talking about? India and Pakistan. Now, it all started with a terrorist attack in the Kashmiri region of Pahalgam, where 26 individuals, 25 Indians and 1 Nepali, were killed by gunmen just 2 days ago. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called on India and Pakistan to exercise maximum restraint to prevent further deterioration of the tense situation in the subcontinent after the terrorist attack in Kashmir. The official announcement was made by his spokesperson Stefan Dujarric during a press briefing.
He has not had any direct contact, but I can tell he's obviously following the situation very closely and with very great concern. We were very clear in our condemnation of the terror attack that occurred in Jammu and Kashmir on the 22nd, 2 days ago, which killed a large number of civilians. But we very much appeal to both the governments of Pakistan and the government of India to exercise maximum restraint and to ensure that this situation and the developments we've seen do not deteriorate any further. Any issues between Pakistan and India, we believe can be and should be resolved peacefully through meaningful mutual engagement.
Now, when the terrorist attack took place, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Saudi Arabia for talks. Now, he cut short his visit, came back to India and held an emergency meeting with his defense and security officials and advisors in New Delhi. Now, yesterday, addressing a public rally, Modi sent a clear message to the entire world. While his entire speech was in Hindi, this particular part was in English, where he emphasized that those responsible for this terrorist attack will be tracked down and punished.
Today, from the soil of Bihar, I say to the whole world, India will identify, track and punish every terrorist and their backer. We will pursue them to the ends of the earth. India's spirit will never be broken by terrorism. Terrorism will not go unpunished. Every effort will be made to ensure that justice is done. The entire nation is firm in this resolve. Everyone who believes in humanity is with us. I thank the people of various countries and their leaders who have stood with us in these times.
A very strong message by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, at the same time, yesterday, there were many developments taking place in New Delhi and in Islamabad. Now, let's first switch to New Delhi. Foreign delegates or diplomats in embassies based in India visited the Indian Foreign Ministry throughout the day yesterday, and they were given a briefing by the Indian Ministry of External Affairs about the developments and what measures that India will be taking. And at the same time, Pakistan's Prime Minister met with the National Security Council and also decided on strong measures to respond to what India is doing against Pakistan. Now, India suspended the Indus Water Treaty of 1960 with immediate effect. The government said that it will remain suspended unless Pakistan credibly and irrevocably stops support for cross-border terrorism. At the same time, India also closed the integrated checkpoint in Attari. People who crossed with endorsements were allowed to return through the route until May 1st. At the same time, India also called back its defense, military, naval and air advisors in the High Commission in Islamabad, and also reduced the number of personnel available there, and then also declared the defense, military, naval and air advisors in the Pakistani High Commission in New Delhi as persona non grata, giving them a week to leave. At the same time, earlier in the day, the Indian Ministry of External Affairs said that everyone who has visited India from Pakistan using the SARC visa scheme should leave within a week. However, thereafter another statement was made that the visas issued to Pakistani nationals will expire on the 27th of April and medical visas will expire on the 28th of April, and Pakistani nationals were advised to leave before that day. Now, at the same time, Pakistan announced also a series of countermeasures against India, including the closure of its airspace as tensions escalated. Pakistani Defence Minister Khawaja Asif claimed, without providing any evidence, that the attack was orchestrated and rejected India's claims that Pakistan was involved in this. Pakistani officials are saying that any Indian attempt to divert water from the Indus River will be considered as an act of war after New Delhi announced its withdrawal from the decades-old water allocation pact with Islamabad. Now, as we mentioned earlier, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has pledged to hunt the gunman responsible for the attack in Pahalgam. And with that, we bring an end to this week's edition of the Breakfast Rundown. But if you want to stay updated with what's happening here in Sri Lanka and across the world, do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok and YouTube. And also visit our award-winning website. That's www.newsfirst.lk. Until we meet you again on Monday, take care, stay safe and have an amazing weekend.